Hello everyone and welcome back to day 65 of our F125 hot lap and track guides. Yes, we return this weekend here once again in the F2 car, this time round at Montreal, of course, the home of the Canadian Grand Prix. If you missed out on the video that went live a couple of days ago from Barcelona, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. Of course, today though, we're back here at a circuit that F2 doesn't race at, but I reckon if it did, it would be absolutely incredible. Of course, if you don't know what this series is about, I basically go through, I provide you guys with a race-ready F2 setup inside F125. I talk you around the circuit, what gears you want to be using, where your braking markers should be, and any other kind of nuggets of information. And then last but not least, I leave you with a hot lap. Of course, as always, timestamps will be linked down in the description below if you just want to head to a certain part of this video. A massive thank you to everybody for all of their continued support. We have just ticked past 14,500 subscribers, but we want to try and get to 15k in the not too distant future. So yeah, of course, if these videos are helping you out, please do make sure you hit that like button, get yourself subscribed. But yeah, let's head out onto the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Well, with the speed of modern Formula 1 and Formula 2 machinery, this Montreal circuit feels a little bit awkward, I'll be honest, inside the game. Through the final chicane, though, you obviously want to activate the DRS. In qualifying trim, and if you're not in a slipstream, leave the car in 5th gear as we make our way in towards turn 1. Bring the car over to the right-hand side as we make our way in towards the first corner. You're going to be using this kind of white... It kind of looks white from a distance, but this grey area on the outside. You want to brake just past the 100-meter board and tip the car in from 5th gear. Don't engine brake too much on the way in, but you want to cycle the car down through 4th and then 3rd gear, and maybe even 2nd if you want to attack the curb nicely through the first part of the corner. Leave the car in 2nd gear then as we rotate through to the right-hander, but avoid that inside curb at all costs. All that happens if you use that inside curb is the back end steps out, and again, in Formula 2 cars, you just cannot get it back again. So avoid that curbing as best as you can. Hug the apex until you make your way through the exit of the corner, and then just as you can see the tunnel, the bridge even on the outside, that is when you want to get on the loud pedal off the exit of the turn. Cycle back up through 3rd and 4th gear, leave the car over on the left-hand side of the circuit before we make our way up in towards turn 3. Again, it's a blind apex. It's a really, really tricky corner to get right. You want to brake about 65 meters out, try and rotate the car in quite nicely, and then downshift the 3rd gear as you go over the curb. You can see that even then getting done for track limits. Leave the car in 3rd gear on the exit though, get on the throttle nice and early, avoid the outside wall as best as you can, and then back up through 4th gear through the exit of sector 1. Hug the wall on the inside. You want to be aiming just past the 100-meter board when you get on the anchors. From 4th gear, you want to bring the car down to 2nd, but this curb you really do want to attack. It just gives you a more planted approach through the exit of the chicane. Again, rev the car out, short shift up through 3rd gear as you get the power down off of the corner before we are activating the DRS once again. Try to make this back straight that isn't very straight as straight as you possibly can. You want to be all the way up in 5th gear. Again, if you've got a slipstream, you might be up into 6th, but if you're running by yourself or doing a qualifying run, leave the car in 5th gear as you want to brake just as you go under this gantry down in towards this next chicane there. From 5th gear, you want to brake down into 3rd. Again, you can get away with quite a lot of curb through the entry. And then, of course, just be very, very careful on the throttle on the exit. Don't allow the car to run too wide, otherwise you'll clip the grass, and the back end's just going to overtake the front. So you've got to be very, very careful through there. Back up through 5th gear, though, as we make our way down in towards the hairpin. You want to brake just before the 100-meter board, just after that little AstroTurf or tarmac runoff on the outside there. Down into 2nd gear, and again, you just want to be super, super smooth on the throttle on the exit. Avoid wheel spin like the plague through the exit of that corner before finally we get a chance to stretch this F2 machine's legs down in towards the final turn. Activate the DRS though, of course, all the way up in 6th gear. It gives you a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to mentally prepare for the final chicane because it is brutal. And track limits seem to have been tightened up as well on F125. On previous games, you could take a bit of the curb through the first part, but not anymore. Brake just past the 100-meter board. I find, if anything, you want to slightly outbrake yourself in towards this final chicane so you don't risk cutting the first part there. Bring the car down to 3rd gear, clip the first sausage curb, clip the 2nd one as well, and then get on the loud pedal as early as you possibly can. Don't allow the car to run wide on the exit, otherwise if you hit the wall, your lap time will be invalidated. And there we go. That is going to be a lap of Montreal here. It's one of those tracks that when you do get it nailed, it is really, really good fun. But honestly, even more in the F2 car than the F1 machines on this game, trying to get a lap hooked up around this venue is super, super difficult. Let's head back to the pit lane though, and I'll talk you guys through the setup. Well, having a look at our global leaderboard, as you can see, 34th in the world. I'm pretty happy with that lap, considering especially this is a race-ready setup. I reckon if I absolutely nailed it, I could probably dip down into the 117s. So, you know, we could have been kind of top 15 in the world if I absolutely got an almighty lap hooked up. But having a look then at our front and rear wing, 25-18. I've seen a lot of people running some very, very different angles around this circuit, but I've opted to have a bit more front end. It gives you the bite through the likes of turn 3, the chicane down the end of the back straight and through the hairpin. But to combat that, I'm running 18 rear wing. Again, just to give you a little bit more speed down the straights. As I've mentioned before, the F2 cars seem to be even more kind of wing sensitive than the F1 machines. The front wing completely dictates your rotation, and the rear wing completely dictates your top end speed. 140 though on the on and off throttle diff. Again, that's fairly standard inside this game. There are a couple of tricky traction zones, but really apart from the hairpin, none of them are particularly low speed. So yeah, you don't need to worry too much about the on or the off throttle differential there. Absolutely minimum camber and toe angles. Again, fairly standard for what we run inside F125. 37.5 though for the front and rear suspension. Again, you want to run it quite firm. You want to allow the rear suspension though to squat quite a lot on corner exit. But then you can see 18-16 anti-roll bar. You want to run it quite stiff around this track as well, just because obviously where you've got those change to the rotations, where most of the curbs aren't too brutal, you can really afford to run the car quite firm and obviously maximize your speed because of it as well. 22.48 though on the ride height, again, just allows you to get up on those curbs, you know, through the start of Sector 2, through all of the chicanes in Sector 2, in fact. Just obviously gives you a little bit more stability as you make your way through. 55-100 for your brake bias and pressure. Again, just my standard inside this game. It's what works for me. But of course, change it as to how you guys see fit. And then 25.5 front PSI, 21.3 on the rear. Unlike Barcelona, this isn't a track that really kind of uses up one side of the car more than the other. So you can afford to run, obviously, neutral with your tyre pressures there. But again, there are quite a few traction zones, so you'll run slightly less rear pressure just to give yourself the grip off of the corners. But there we are then. Hopefully this video has helped you out. If it does, please do make sure, like I said, you get yourself subscribed, you leave a like on the video. We'll be back next time out, I believe, at the Red Bull Ring. Obviously the Austrian Grand Prix, a staple of the F2 calendar. But yeah, I'm going to leave you guys with a hot lap, and we'll be back very soon with more setups for F125.